All right, here we are. Welcome to Cocktails and Fishtales. I'm Stina Troyer, your science specialist. And again, this is Adam Obaza, a marine biologist extraordinaire. We'll introduce him a little bit later, but for now, we want you to get comfortable tuning in wherever you're watching from. If you want to write in the comments where you are, and of course, remember that's your space to put questions in the chat so that we can have your questions answered live at the end of Adam's presentation. But while you're getting situated, we always like to ask our presenters to share their favorite cocktail and a wild fish tale. So Adam, can you enlighten us as to as to those things?
Sure. Yeah. Hey, I think a favorite cocktail is almost anything at the end of a dive day when you're dry and you're kind of done. It's really immaterial mostly what you're drinking. It doesn't even have to be alcoholic. It could just be a nice seltzer water or something. You just more the feeling of being done and relaxing and maybe even being mostly dry would be good. But also maybe a bintang beer in the middle of the Indian Ocean would be good too. Either one would be good. Yeah. What about you, Stina? What's your favorite cocktail?
I'm definitely seasonal in my cocktail delights. Right now, I feel like it's getting into that gin and tonic season. I feel like that's that nice, refreshing. But yeah, I'm with you on a good beer or even hot chocolate after a dive is also a key delight. Now, I know we like to prep our people before so they're not totally on the spot. So it sounds like we have a video for you to share for your fishtail here. So you can do the share screen option so we can see what wild wonders you're up to out in the salty world.
Sure. I have two fishtails while we're waiting. The first is more dive related and the second is the fish. The first one was diving up on a little pinnacle in the San Juan Islands with two other folks. And I'm sure many of you know that the currents in the San Juans can be quite strong and treacherous, and it's all the more tricky when there's no shoreline to swim to, when you're just on a little pinnacle in the middle of a channel. And so the three of us went down and were fighting current the entire way, and realized that we were not going to be able to get back to the anchor or to the boat under our own power. So very dramatically, after completing our safety stop, we link hands to make sure we don't lose anybody. We ascend with a safety sausage so people know where we are, and just like parachuting upwards, not knowing what you're going to come into when you surface, and just feeling we're getting blown all over the place. And we surface in the most calm water immediately adjacent to the boat, thinking that we're maybe feeling just a bit sheepish that we felt so dramatic just seconds before. And then the fishtail, 4 years ago now, I was diving on the backside of Catalina, which is a very wild place in low visibility with my work partner. And it's definitely a place that you might expect to encounter a white shark. And in this low visibility out of the gloom, we have this guy come in and check us out. And that's my partner probably yelling. This is a giant sea bass. These things get as big as a Volkswagen Beetle. And it was definitely even though that kind of fish is totally harmless, seeing a large animal loom out of the gloom at you, it was got the heart going, I guess I'll say.
Well, I have to say we don't rank our cocktails and fishtail speakers for like the biggest fishtail, but we're gonna go ahead and give you the the trophy for that's definitely the largest fish that we've encountered in this question. So
nice.
Well played. And it looks like we have all sorts of lovely humans tuning in. So again, for those of you just joining, this is just your reminder that as Adam goes through his presentation, make sure you're typing in the comments those questions that you have so we can ask those at the end and have them answered live. That's kind of a fun part of our virtual digital program here, so that we can keep our people engaged until we're back to some in-person programs. But for now, like, shout out to, like, we've got some Montanans in the house. Hi, Mom and Dad, as well as some other folks. So glad that you're all here. And with no further ado, I'm absolutely delighted to be welcoming Adam to this presentation, because we've gotten to work together doing rockfish surveys for the last couple of years. Adam is, of course, a marine biologist who does all sorts of cool work, mostly in Southern California on white abalone and eelgrass, but also, you know, spends his time hanging out with these goons up in the Pacific Northwest looking for baby rockfish, smaller, you know, that 3-inch or smaller kind of fish, and getting people pumped about community science and engaged in collecting meaningful data. And I know I'm very curious to see what's going on with all this work we've been doing in partnership with you in the Paua Marine Research Group. So with no further ado, Adam, it's great to have you. It's all you from here on out.
All right, I'll share my screen again. All good?
Looks golden.
Great. Cool. Well, thanks, Dina. So this is I believe I'm currently the 8th or maybe 8th year of collecting data for this project, the 9th year of working on it. And this is maybe my 4th or 5th Cocktails and Fishtales. Kind of strongly wish I was in person with you all. I really miss doing those presentations in Gig Harbor. It was super fun, and hopefully we can get back to doing that sometime very soon. But until then, we do have some kind of cool progress with our Young of the Year Rockfish survey program. So I'm hoping that some of you are veterans of a few of my talks and maybe know a little bit about what a rockfish is. If you're not, that's fine. I'm going to take care of you. If I can get there we go, slides to advance. All right, so rockfish are this group of bony fish. There's about 100 species, all in the genus Sebastes, and they are found primarily on the west coast of North America. There's roughly 35 species in Puget Sound, and they're just so freaking cool. I already mentioned that they're quite diverse for a single genus, but they also live a super long time. Some species can live up to a couple hundred years. They give birth to live young, just like us humans, which means they have a great deal of parental investment. And they have venomous spines, and that automatically ups the cool factor of any organism, knowing that it could cause you a very bad day. And unfortunately, a lot of what makes these fish cool is also what makes them a bit vulnerable. And a great example of that is their swim bladder. A swim bladder is an organ that fishes use to orient themselves in the water. That is, make sure that they're at the depth they want. And some fish are able to very quickly adjust the volume of that organ, and some fishes, like rockfish, are not. And because water is so heavy, you don't have to go a long distance to change a great deal of pressure. Only about 33 feet of water is equal to the entire pressure of the atmosphere that we feel on land. So if a rockfish is hanging out at 100 feet and it gets caught accidentally and yanked to the surface, its swim bladder changes dramatically in size with the reduced pressure, and it prevents the fish from swimming back to the bottom, and it gets stuck. It's something called barotrauma. So that, along with late age at maturity, inconsistent reproductive success, unfortunately makes these guys quite vulnerable. And in the Salish Sea, that's exactly what happened to them there. So they, during the 20th century, began being the target of commercial and recreational fishing as salmon started to become a bit depleted. And you can see a stringer of rockfish here, and you can see evidence of this barotrauma I was referring to. You can see the eyes are bugged out and the gut is out of the mouth. So if that fish were released, it definitely could not swim back down. And a modeling exercise showed that with available data, rockfishes in both North Puget Sound in this black, and then in Puget Sound proper in the red. And so North Puget Sound would be up here in the San Juans, in the strait west of Admiralty Inlet, and then over here, the western part of the strait, are declining, as are those in Puget Sound proper. And it's not just active fishing that's a problem. There's also issues with derelict gear that is lost and continues to fish in a process known as ghost fishing. And it can catch rockfish, like perhaps these two copper rockfish that are close to this shrimp pond. Or habitat loss. In Puget Sound, kelp has declined dramatically over the last few decades. And rockfish love the three-dimensional structure of kelp, and without it, they are even more vulnerable. And as happens often with species that undergo such dramatic declines, with enough evidence, some of them may be listed under the Endangered Species Act, and that's what happened up in Puget Sound. Two species, yellow eye and boccaccio, are listed under the ESA. And one of the requirements of listing a species under the ESA is the development of a recovery plan, a blueprint for how to bring the populations back to a sustainable level. And that was released for these rockfishes in 2017. And among the actions included in that recovery plan are a requirement for additional fishery independent surveys. That means direct observation, particularly with the young of year rockfish, those that are born within the last year, understanding their habitat associations. Finally, greater outreach, including with scuba divers. And the reason that the young of year rockfish are so important to monitor is that rockfish undergo this uneven reproductive success. One might think that the amount of rockfish young of year are directly proportional to the number of adults, but that's not true. The reproduction is actually highly uneven and driven by some combination of oceanic, climatic variables that create the occasional jackpot year. And so this is this variable recruitment. That's what we know happens. We just don't know what causes it, which is realistic. And then we have this perfect, idealized, unrealistic constant recruitment that definitely does not happen in nature. And to figure out what causes a jackpot year would be incredibly valuable to develop the most effective policy possible to return these fishes to a sustainable population level. That might include changing fishing patterns when you can predict a high likelihood of a jackpot year, or adjusting coastal development work, or any other number of other methods that could be used to protect those young recruits. But that would take a very long time to determine. A jackpot year might happen once every 10, 15, 30 years. And so to wait that long for just one would make for a very kind of boring program. Unfortunately, there's a lot of other value we can derive from conducting surveys for young of year rockfish without waiting that long. We can learn almost immediately what are the most valuable rearing habitats. And that doesn't just mean kelp as is pictured here. By the way, this is definitely not Puget Sound. It's very blue. You can, it's not just, oh, it's kelp, it's eelgrass, it's reef. It's what features of these habitats might be more valuable. Is there a time of year that certain habitats are more valuable? Is, say, kelp in the San Juans more valuable than kelp in the Southern Sound? There's a whole lot of dimensions that need to be tackled there. And then once we figure that out, are there any activities, coast development, fishing, anything else that might be threatening those habitats? And then also, can we do any restoration projects? Can we partner with any local groups that might be able to enhance the recruitment of rockfish in the region? And it also provides us an opportunity to build a survey program and integrate ourselves with divers who are largely known to be very knowledgeable and passionate, because you got to be real passionate to put on a dry suit and jump in the 45-degree water up in the Salish Sea. And they're certainly capable of handling a lot of what the environment can send their way, and it can really build a more comprehensive team for rockfish recovery. And we need to work with other divers because you can't just have a couple people go out and collect data sufficient for the needs of this work. Fish are incredibly what we call noisy. That means that there's a lot of variability over space and time. And it's not like looking at an anemone. No offense if there's an anemone biologist out there, but anemones, while I know they can move, they certainly don't move as much as fish. So we need to cover a huge area, and we need to cover it frequently to account for that variability. And so initially the thought was, oh, well, this will be a citizen science project, but there's all manner of problems with just popping out a citizen science project. You need a huge amount of infrastructure, and you need a lot of staff. And what has become possibly my favorite manuscript I've read, Locke et al. In 2019, showed that to run a citizen science program of meaningful size, you need roughly 5.5 full-time employees to guide it. And we certainly don't have that. But it makes me feel a little bit better when we don't have 1,000 divers out there at any given time. And also, if we create a citizen science project, are we just becoming another silo? Are we becoming a separate entity that isn't going to be great at collaborating? And so the happy medium here is maybe developing a more partner-driven approach. And what I mean by that is we try and involve ourselves with any group that might be interested in collecting these data, that is perhaps already out doing field work, or is, if they are a citizen, a very passionate, capable diver that's looking to add a bit of conservation to their normal diving. And we've been fortunate to build that partner-driven approach. We started at NOAA back when I was working there. Oh, excuse me. My dog heard a noise and she doesn't like noises. So we started off with NOAA.
Your dog might be the anemone biologist who's
right. That is undeniably filling the comment section with specifics of a certain species of anemone that's known to swim more than fish. So right. So we started out with NOAA with the idea and collecting a very small amount of data. And then we built in with Harbor WildWatch, who was the first group to kind of incorporate this program.
Now your dog's cheering for Harbor WildWatch.
Yeah, right.
We're excited.
I'm just gonna mute myself real quick and ask her to.
No worries. I think this is where I get to step in and tell a fish joke. Like, what did the fish say when it ran into a concrete wall? Damn. I don't know if that's appropriate for Facebook, but hopefully y'all can handle that.
I thought it was good. Okay, sorry. And then also the CDOC Society up in the San Juans helped us out very early as well. And getting a foothold with these groups in showing the value of this program and that it is something that can be incorporated. We've had a whole bunch of other groups step in as well. And this is just a subset of them showing that we really are developing. And I don't think that we would have this many partners if we didn't have kind of a simple but robust methodology. And whether you're interested in joining us one time or just want to help us collect data or just want to know what I'm talking about when I talk about one of these surveys, I hope I will show you how simple this survey methodology is. And to help me, I have put together a very dramatic representation of a dive site. And we conduct what are called timed roving surveys within specific depth and habitat types, which sounds like a lot, but all it means is you keep track of how long you're swimming in one of 3 depth bins: shallow, intermediate, or deep, and in one of about a handful, 4 or 5 different habitat types. And here I've got eelgrass, soft bottom, a natural reef, and a kelp forest. And in here, I've hidden multiple young of year rockfish, 4 in the eelgrass, a couple in the natural reef, and 4 in the kelp forest. And now, young rockfish, those that are less than 10 centimeters, are incredibly difficult to identify the species. And we thought that's going to be a major problem to ask folks to identify these tiny fish to species when even professionals greatly struggle to do so. And we've gotten around that by using a couple traits. They're called morphologically, how the fish looks. The first is the presence or absence of a dorsal spot. And the second is an elongate or deep body shape. And by doing that, we can narrow down what the likely species are. And that's incredibly helpful to kind of draw a happy medium between getting robust data, but not overtaxing, and quite honestly, getting inaccurate data. And I that's not a knock on any of our partners. That I would do the same thing if you forced me to identify a 1 inch or 3 centimeter young of year rockfish that's to copper or quillback. It could be bad. So we just kind of circumvented that with our methods, and just take you through a couple of these bins here to show you how simple it should be. So if you're swimming in this eelgrass, you're going to record the number of minutes that you were there. You're going to record that you found 4, and these are all the deep body no spot, which I would understand if you couldn't pick that out from this remote presentation. You would report that you were in eelgrass. You could add some basic characteristics of it if you wanted, but the important thing is that you were in eelgrass and the depth bin, which if it's eelgrass in the Salish Sea, it's almost definitely shallow. And it's that simple. And then same thing for the kelp forest. How many minutes did it take to complete the survey? You saw 4 of the young of year. You were in a kelp forest. You could add the basic characteristics if you so desired in the depth bin. Again, Salish Sea, probably shallow for kelp forest. And I'll note that the number of minutes to complete the survey is incredibly important. That is what relativizes our data and creates what's known as encounter rate. How many young of year rockfish you encounter over time is a far different piece of data than how many rockfish did you see, because some people will go out and dive for 90 minutes and some people go out for 10 minutes. And those are dramatically different results, particularly with species that you don't see or individuals you don't see very much. And it seems as though there has been we've been very fortunate with the growth of this program. And we can see that our partner effort has gone up dramatically. Took us about 3 years to kind of get integrated with a lot of local groups and build our partnerships. And it's very, at first gradually and now dramatically increased. And that's a testament to the groups that work with us and stick with us and find ways themselves how to build their capacity. But also our professional was mostly started off as just me and then became my partner and I have also built, and that's a testament to NOAA, who funds the study, that they want this project to be completed as well. And so they have provided us the funding to get up here as well, to get the work done. We did have a bit of a decline in 2020 because we weren't quite so comfortable traveling. But we're back on pace in 2021. And I think that there's a number of ways that we've been very successful with our partners. The first is we try and provide opportunities to get out and survey. This is a photo with Stina in the forefront from a boat in Hood Canal. We chartered to take some of our partners out diving one day, some sites they wouldn't get to all the time. We also continue to collaborate with the groups that we started with. This was us with CDOC up off Orcas Island last year. And then this is us on Fox Island with Harbor WildWatch last year, a few years ago. And then also by continuing to reach out to new groups, this is Alan Verde from the Rosario Beach Marine Station has brought out his rib and taken us to some new dive sites. So we continue to have more opportunities as we bring on more partners. And I have to add this slide because in the event there is someone in the audience or watching that says to me, oh, I'm interested in helping, but I might only get out a couple times a year, and I'm afraid that's not going to be of interest to you. That's not remotely true. And the data back that up. In 2021, we had 37 individuals, our partners, collect data. And that came out to about 650 partner transects. If you assume that everyone surveyed the same amount, which is totally not true, but if you assume that they did, every individual contributes about 6% or around 18 transects, which depending on how many you do on a dive, could be anywhere from 3 to 6 dives. So any individual who just gives what seems like a small amount of effort is actually a dramatic help. So it certainly is a kind of a crowdsourced effort here, where we have hopefully a lot of people collecting whatever amount of data they feel comfortable with, and building a much more impressive database. So I never want anyone to think that there is not, they won't help, that only going out a few times a year or something, it wouldn't be enough. We appreciate all of it. So, and I'm happy to talk more about that at the end if anyone desires. And I also like to look at the change in effort spatially because it makes me smile. And so every point here is where a survey was conducted. It doesn't account for multiple surveys at a site, which would happen later. But in 2015, we are just working with CDOC and Harbor WildWatch. And so we're kind of in the San Juans and then down here on the east side of Central Sound. And we continue in 2016, 2017, pretty low geographic coverage. And then 2018, we start to kind of find our groove and expand along with our initial partners. We're getting more and more coverage, 2018, 2019. 2020, we couldn't go up to the San Juans because of the pandemic, but we certainly had pretty great coverage down here in Puget Sound proper. And then 2021 was great. Everyone kind of coming back together and just had a fantastic go in 2021. That's just kind of exciting to me just to see how much more coverage we're getting. And along with that, we can see that we had more effort in 2021 at every basin of Puget Sound as compared to the best year of the previous 6 seasons of surveying. So every single basin got greater attention in 2021 than in any year in the previous history of the program. So very, very cool. And then also we're getting, this slide follows on with that. We are getting greater diversity of basins. So it's not just that we're having more effort in each basin, but ideally we would have an even amount of effort in every basin, I'd say, or close to it. And we're getting much more near that idyllic state. So right, so the effort part is going really great. I stress about it a lot, to be honest, but it is going well. And the reason that I stress about it is that if we don't have a great level of effort, if we don't have a lot of folks collecting data in a lot of different parts of the sound, then we can't say a lot with our data. And to get into that, we can check the data that we're returning to see how it looks. And so this first plot, and I don't know if you can hear this. Now my big dog has decided it's a great time to drink as loudly as he can. But we're just gonna ride with it.
It is cocktails and fish.
Yeah, it is cocktails. So he does have the right attitude.
Their own beverage.
Yeah.
Which might be a good moment to be like, hey, for those of you tuning in, what are you drinking right now?
I'm convinced he only drinks twice during the day, and it's to drink as much, like both bowls that are out, and he just tanks up and just gets ready to go on his walk and let the neighborhood know he's around. Right. Okay. So this plot, the solid line is the encounter rate. Recall we talked about that is the metric that we return from our surveys, the number of young of year rockfish we record over time. And we've binned all the different morphological groups into just one average here. And then also we have the dashed line, giving you an idea of when we're getting the most amount of effort. And so we see kind of three valuable things here, I think. The first is that we have this hump starting kind of in summer and then lasting through the late fall. And that coincides with what the literature, the common knowledge says about rockfish recruitment in Puget Sound, is that you see that mostly in the fall. And we found that that's actually really the deep body no spot group. These little guys here, this super adorable, freshly settled young of year in Hood Canal. And then we see this very dramatic spike in March. And this was almost entirely driven by our surveys in March of 2021, where we saw a large pulse of elongate dorsal spot fishes, the yellowtail and black rockfish. So we have kind of a gentle hump at the time that the literature says we should see it, which is good. That means that we are collecting data that will is in line with what common knowledge says. But we also, when we see something that's different, like we did in March 2021, we know that that's meaningful. We know it's not just noise, which is extra helpful. And then the final part that I think is cool is that we have seen a young of year in every single month of the year. So that supports the benefit of going out and surveying all year long instead of just in the summer and fall months. And if we did just survey in that time period, we would have totally missed that that big event there. So very cool. Now in this slide, I need to give a warning to tread kind of lightly here. Honestly, I don't even really like this plot very much, but it's something that people are kind of interested in seeing about the habitat associations. And the reason I don't like it is because if you recall the amount of effort we had early in this project, 2015 through 2017, we're not able to say as much because we're only looking at a very small snippet compared to what we are now. Of course, we could be doing way better, but these giant error bars like you see here, that's kind of representative of variability. And when you're only doing a few surveys, you might see, if you see a handful in one dive and zero in the next, you're going to have a lot of variability, and it's more difficult to say things. Same thing with the kelp forest here. So I don't love the plot for that reason. So I just take kind of general trends from it, that we don't see as many rockfish and kelp forests as we might expect, which is kind of interesting. And we do see them on artificial reefs. Now, please do not take that to mean that I think artificial reefs are a solution of any kind. I think that they're incredibly complicated. So that's another reason why this plot makes me a little bit uneasy. There you go. Please just take the general trends that and note that we're probably zeroing in on what might be normal over time. But I think far more interesting is this observation that we had, that it felt like we didn't see a lot of young of year in high current areas. And we were able to look at some NOAA buoys and actually test that statistically. We were able to get the maximum mean speed averaged across an entire year. And we, this is for 2015 through 2020 here, it's the first 6 years, and plot it and say, oh, wow, there is a dramatic drop off when you get above a current speed of 0.7 meters per second. I'm sorry, that is meters per second is not right. I think that's nautical miles. Yeah, that's nuts. It's a knot current, not meters per second. That'd be crazy. So regardless, we saw this cutoff here and we thought, oh, well, there it is. The amount of current at a site significantly affects the rockfish recruitment. But we had this one point here, and that was a little bit surprising. This, for those of you who divers, this site is called Keystone Jetty. And this was a bit, outliers happen to be sure, but it's a bit surprising. And didn't quite fit with our narrative, and you've got to continue to ask the question. So we asked the same question with all of our data from 2015 through 2021. And you can see now we have 2 sites. And we also have some of the higher current sites with more observations. And I'll also note a big thank you to the folks who went out to Deception Pass, who dove in a site that has an average of a 5-knot current. I will not be doing this, but I will encourage those who are willing to do so safely to carry on, and thanks for the data. So, wow, what the heck happened? We thought we had this all sorted out, and we're totally wrong, because no longer is this a significant relationship. So what does that mean? Do we just screw up? Is it just a problem? Obviously, if I screwed up, I wouldn't be sharing this slide. I can't have that kind of negativity. So really, it's a species group issue, where if you split out into the elongate body shape with a dorsal spot, the yellow tail and black rockfish, you see that current doesn't really matter. There's not a significant relationship. And in fact, they seem to do just fine in pretty high current sites, Keystone Jetty and site at Port Townsend. And if you look at elongate without dorsal spots, the Puget Sound rockfish, they also don't care. But the deep body without dorsal spots, the coppers, browns, and quillbacks, they definitely seem to care. And so just with 1 year of gathering a lot more data, we were able to drill down much more specifically about the influence of currents at a site on rockfish recruitment. And that's incredibly valuable. And I really like this example as showing what extra effort gets us. And we also, I believe, have the ability to very coarsely ask whether a given year was a boom year. If you have a year that you believe might have had some strong activity with recruitment, you can average every other year that you don't believe had that activity to make a background. In it, however much you deviate from that mean in your year of interest might suggest a boom year or not. But I have to again caution that this approach does not take into account the differential site visitation that we have that is part of this program. And I think that that's important with the deep body no spots. We've added a lot of sites that maybe they're not as common at, and so that makes it seem like they're declining. I don't necessarily think that that's true. However, we did see a big expansion of elongate bodied dorsal spots in 2021. The same point you saw on the line in March of 2021. and you see these giant error bars. I was talking about the variability. Well, that's going back to the noisiness of a rockfish recruitment event, that it's only there for a short period of time, and they tend to move. So you might only record it for a short period of time, which means in a given year, even if there's a boom, there's going to be a lot of variability. So this is exactly what I'd expect to see with a high recruitment event. And then to a much lesser extent, perhaps the Puget Sounds had a strong year as well. But I think this is the far more important relationship. And to look at it a different way, for the dives with the young of year in 2021, I believe this is also split out with the elongate dorsal spot. We saw in most basins, or at least in would-be Admiralty Inlet, Hood Canal, and San Juan, 4 out of the 6, we saw a much greater encounter rate. And now that I'm looking at that, I think this is all young of year, because Central and South Sound are the basins that we almost never see the elongate dorsal spot. So it makes sense there's a bit of a decline there, but everywhere else there is a much greater frequency with young of year. And if we look at it spatially, we have encounter of elongate with dorsal spot 2015 through 2020, where orange points represent absence of a elongate dorsal spot YOY, and the size of the green point represents the encounter rate. We see that in just 2021, we saw greater spatial spread and intensity of the green dots. But again, I must caution you, we have done more surveying, so perhaps these sites always see that level of encounter rate. Although now that we've surveyed these sites in around that time of year in 2022, I can tell you this is not normal. So I this with caution, but it does seem pretty striking to me. Right, so things going pretty great with this program, and we're able to start saying a lot more with our data, which is wonderful. And then people ask me, well, what do you think success looks like in 2022? Do you want to be greedy, I guess, and try and just build as much as you can? And we don't think that's a very good idea, because we only have 2 of us really leading this project, and it's certainly not our only project. And so we'll quickly overextend ourselves and not build the way that we should be. So we definitely don't want to just try and add capacity for the sake of doing so. But we also don't want to go into the prevent defense. We don't want to just say, okay, we're fine. We're just going to kind of let the project run itself now. We seem like we've achieved what we wanted, because the prevent defense only prevents winning, as we all know. So instead, I think that we could all learn a bit from Grant's strategy at Chattanooga, and have a 3-pronged approach, where we want to integrate this program more with other work happening in the region. We want to continue to build the relationships that we already have, and selectively recruit new partners. And in doing so, I think altogether, I think that's going to be the path to keep this project moving in the direction that we need it to be. And to be more specific, integrating ourselves is going to be making sure we're available for all of our partners that we work with, provide in-kind services. And by that, I mean, if other groups say, hey, while you're out, could you let us know if you see any Pycnopodia, the sun star that's being considered for listing, or if you see any lingcod, let us know. That way we can show our value to other folks. And we are already doing that with WDFW, Reef Check, and PSRF, and it's going really great. We also want to maintain our relationships. We want to give dive opportunities, whether it's through a charter or just suggesting days to get out and visit a certain site, and build that community. We've also talked with a few of our partners about helping them out write grants to work on their own scientific writing, and get out. In one case, I'm thinking of try and find some funding for additional charter time. We've also put together some service rewards. If people hit a certain amount of effort, we'll be happy to provide them a t-shirt or just a dive story or something. And then almost as important is we need to show what the effort of all our partners is providing. We need to continue to put out reports and publications of this work to show that it really is of value to not only conserving all rockfish in Puget Sound, but also for the two listed species, the yellow line boccaccio. And in order to get at that very difficult question of our monitoring approach, which is asymmetric, where we don't hit all the same sites all the same way, we are putting together a monitoring plan, which is much more statistically robust than what I went through tonight, and will account for those differences. So we'll be able to get a much stronger index each year of recruitment, which will be incredibly helpful. And then finally, selective recruitment. We want to make sure we're available, provide those dive opportunities, and just make sure we're finding the right folks. We only have so much time in the day, and if you can tell pretty quick someone who's on the ball and wants to be part of the team, and it gets us really excited when we have an opportunity to work with somebody new, and that can bring a lot to the group. So take-home messages: we're doing great. The program's growing to a point that we can finally infer some general trends, which is way better than the first few cocktails and fishtails in this program are provided, which is so much more coarse. So hopefully those of you who stuck it out with me, thank you. I hope you're feeling like you've been rewarded. We've had what might have been a boom year, probably a boom year for yellowtail and black rockfish in 2021, possibly Puget Sound, but I'm a little less convinced. We are building some more quantitative methods to make this even more effective, and we're going to keep building this program in a selective but multifaceted way. And I have to thank the many partners who are part of this project. There's no question that it would not be happening without them. And I highlighted a few individuals. First and foremost, my wife down there, who I would not have been up in the Northwest if it were not for her all those years ago. So it's just a big hearty thank you also to Lindsay and Stina and everyone in Harbor WildWatch, who's been such a huge supporter of this work and helping build it to the point it is. I can't thank you all enough. And then finally, I'll be happy to just take any questions folks have after I let my dog in.
Excellent. Well, that was fabulous. For those of you, we've got folks from all over the place. We've got North Dakota. Amanda's tuning in from California.
Hey, Amanda.
Yeah, lovely to see those. And then, of course, some Gig Harbor folks. We've got Rachel out on her deck enjoying the sunshine. So good mix of, enjoying the weather while also tuning into Cocktails and Fishtales. So for those of you watching, now's the time to type those questions into the chat, and I'll kind of be popping back and forth between screens to monitor those. And it looks like we have a question from Lucinda, and it is, so do the YOY and juveniles move their location much more, or do the YOY and juveniles move their location much more than the mature adults do?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the young of year, they recruit from the plankton. They spend a period of a few months as larvae in the plankton, which means they're kind of floating in mid-water. And then when they reach a certain size, they find, or when they hit the habitat of interest, they recruit, and that means they kind of settle out of the plankton into that habitat. And I don't believe that the YOY, I don't believe that they move much. That's just when you see them in the water, they undertake this kind of like very localized motion. They dart around and don't seem to move much. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's species specific. There are some species of rockfish that move a good deal and some that don't. The canary rockfish that was listed moves a lot, and that's why it's not listed anymore, because it moves so much. It's not genetically distinct from the open coast, but the yellow eye hardly moves at all. So I think that if there is movement, it's probably happening when the fish is larger. Also, movement is dangerous, and there's a lot of critters that want to eat those little rockfish, and if they move, they're going to be quite vulnerable. So staying near cover is their best bet.
I will say movement is what helps me see them. That's where I'm like on the slides, I'm like, I can't see the rockfish. But in real life, when they're moving around, that's your, oh, there's something there. But yeah, they definitely seem to kind of stay in their little spot and tuck by this rock and hang tight, because it's a dangerous, hungry world out there. Great. Speaking of hungry, we have some, my parents, mom's curious if rockfish are farmed at all. Is that a species that's farmed?
No, not to my knowledge.
Awesome. And then should we avoid eating rock? Like, is there concerns with, going to the restaurant and ordering up that plate of rockfish tacos on the menu?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, because it's also quite complicated. Because rockfish on the open coast, and by that I mean the western coast of Washington, outside of Puget Sound and the Strait, and Oregon and California, are quite well managed. And if you're eating a wild caught, which it would be, rockfish, then it's probably quite sustainable. It is actually probably a pretty good option. But if it was caught in Puget Sound, which would be highly illegal, then it would be terrible. So if you go to your buddy's house and they said, I was just out fishing today and I got this rockfish, do you want to eat it? No, you don't want to do that. That's bad. But if you're out at a restaurant, I would expect that would be a safe option, a sustainable option.
Awesome. And then, of course, this is maybe an opportunity to plug the Monterey Bay Aquarium's seafood watch card. I feel like that's a great resource when it comes to just eating seafood in general, and making ocean-friendly seafood choices, because yeah, it depends. There's a lot of little complex things, and so and I appreciate that they update that website pretty regularly with new data, new trends, and don't eat sharks, do eat wild salmon, but don't eat this, things like that. Excellent. I was wondering, in regards to the graph that you were kind of like, we'll puff and tread lightly. Can you tell us more about why there's a little eat when it comes to artificial reefs, in your opinion?
Yeah, so I mean, you could write a lot about this. So there's actually not a huge amount of reef habitat in Puget Sound proper. There's a good amount up in the San Juans, and in the Strait, but in Puget Sound proper, there's not a huge amount of reef habitat. And so that means that rockfish were doing great without that much reef prior to being depleted. So building your way out of a problem that wasn't caused by a loss of habitat is a very dicey way to go. And then on top of that, when you have an artificial reef that's plopped kind of in the middle of a barren substrate, then it might serve as a sponge for any floating rockfish larvae that may recruit to it, and you may end up creating actually a sink. And when I mean a sink, I mean a population that does not really expand or contribute much to the overall health of the species in the area. So those high numbers might be that, oh, all the young of your recruit there, and then they never leave, or they never get to really contribute. Whereas if they had stayed in the plankton, maybe they would have come across a kelp forest or a natural reef that is more fitting with their ancestral home, as it were. I think that but it's an incredibly difficult question. I think that some artificial reefs are better than others. An example of a good one, I think, is Saltwater State Park. I think that they do a pretty darn good job with that one, where they try and have linkages between habitat types. But there's others that maybe aren't quite so good. So very, very complicated question.
Absolutely. Speaking of which, the complicated life cycle of a rockfish. Could you tell us a little bit more about like the pelagic to just that, and maybe a little teaser on how old rockfish can get, and how do we know how old they are?
Sure. So I think you more or less covered the life cycle, that they release larvae up into the plankton, and they stay in the plankton for a few months until they grow to a size to recruit onto a habitat of interest, and that could be it could even be like a little like log out in the middle of the sound, and they will grow, and in some cases once they grow, they might move a bit, change their depth, might move a bit deeper. In California, where we have the big giant kelp forest, the young of year will recruit to the top of the canopy, and then as they grow, they will kind of move down towards the reef. So yes, that's the life cycle, which of course means that there's a lot of places along the way for things to go wrong, and it kind of highlights the importance of large scale conservation. And so you said yellow eye rockfish have been found to be over 200 years old. Not all species get that old, but they all live at least 40, 50 years if given the opportunity. And the way that we can find that out is by looking at their ear bones, or what is near their ear bones, called an otolith. And that is a little structure that has rings in it, growth rings, not unlike a tree. And if you look at that under a microscope, you can count the rings in it, and you can see how many years the fish has been around. And then just to make that even more crazy, folks are able to look at the chemical composition of that otolith and get an idea of what the fish was eating. So all manner of neat things you can get from looking at the fish structure.
That is pretty incredible. Wild. Lucinda's back with another question, wondering if kind of thinking about that, double dipping when you're out there, like, oh, is there a sunflower star, and reporting that. She's wondering, are divers seeing a decrease in ghost nets or derelict fishing gear, I guess?
We don't see that many to begin with. So I would say we don't see enough to have any strong claim on that. I know the Northwest Straits Initiative has a pretty robust derelict gear program, so I would bet they would have a good resource. Because also much of Puget Sound is not, it's carved by a glacier, so it's pretty deep, and a lot of the area is deeper than I care to go diving. So a lot of those ghost nets will be places that divers wouldn't encounter them. But I guess I did see one earlier this month off of Head Island, so I saw one recently.
Yeah, opportunities to report that and send it to the right team, I guess. Cool. And then of course we have Dave Lowry popping in with an emoji message of boom rock. So I think we'll just, cheers to maybe capturing that in the data. And can you remind me the two species that you maybe caught the boom?
The yellowtail and the black.
Yellowtail. I was like partial. I was like, yellow eye? Oh no, not that one.
Yeah. I wish, and perhaps I misspoke. It's quite possible.
Yeah, there's, what is there, 27, 28 different species of rockfish in the Puget Sound?
I think it depends how far you go. Like I think I usually say 30 to 35.
Great.
You go like the whole Salish Sea.
Easy to mix and match them. Let's see if there's any more questions popping up. I feel like I had one and then I just forgot it, so we'll see if that percolates back into my brain. But from here, is there anything else you'd like to share with us about rockfish?
That you should try and go out and see them, and try and count them if you can, and if not, go to the local aquarium and go and just hang out with them, because they're really fun.
Excellent. That's the segue I needed. If you're not a scuba diver, what can you do to help protect rockfish? these incredibly awesome rockin' species?
There are so many different things you could do. That you could get involved if you wanted to be out in the field. You can get involved in. I think the Northwest Straits Initiative has a kayak kelp mapping program that you could help determine the success or areas that need help with kelp recovery. You could support programs like Harbor WildWatch that are integral for environmental education, and also support the work directly. That would be another way. You could make responsible seafood decisions, or you could, if you do nothing else, for me, if you're someone who likes mylar balloons at your parties, don't ever get them again. I see so many of them out in the water, and you raise my blood pressure when I see them, and I can't count rockfish if I have a heart attack. So the way to help is don't have mylar balloons, and of course they're terrible for the environment too.
Fair. Beautiful. Well, with that, Adam, I think I don't see. Oh, there is one more question. Could you count rockfish in eelgrass while snorkeling?
Absolutely. As long as you're kind of down in and amongst the habitat and feel you can get good coverage, of course you can.
And then Amanda's sneaking in too. Hey, Adam. I hear you are technical certified to 150 feet. Are YOY found deeper than recreational depths? And do you think that there is a good habitat trained technical divers, or that there is good habitat trained technical divers can survey? Great question, Amanda.
Wow. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. I think that that's something that's definitely missing from this is getting to depths that are beyond recreational limits, down to 130, 40, 50, 60. And hopefully we will be able to add that at some point. But unless Amanda wants to find a way to bring a set of doubles up to the Northwest, along with all of our necessary deco bottles, I think it's going to have to be tabled for now.
All right. Well, if you have any, for those of you tuning in, if you have a tech diver friend, which I think I might know some people, we'll see how we can get that little addition, because that would be interesting. The rockfish, they use the whole area. So yeah, any, I guess, use with robot, like underwater ROV kind of camera surveys to supplement.
Yeah. The Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife has done ROV surveys for a long time throughout the region, and they mostly are able to see adults. And I think this program is a great supplement to that, because ROVs don't do as well in more complicated shallow water habitats like kelp forests. So I think this program is a really good complement to the ROV work that's done. So yeah, they do a wonderful job at that.
Well, I think that's a beautiful little bow. That teamwork makes the dream work here. Adam, thank you again so much for joining us for our Cocktails and Fishtales. I'll give you the microphone one more time, and then I have a couple Harbor WildWatch announcements, because programs are happening. The summer is happening. So anything else you'd like to share?
Just thank you to everybody for coming out.
Awesome. A big round of applause to Adam. The crowd's going wild, I can tell, except there's like a 5-second delay. So we'll wait for them to go wild. It's about to happen. And while we're waiting for that round of applause in the comment section, couple things happening in the Harbor WildWatch world is we are back to our in-person low tide beach walks. So please check out our website calendar, as well as really the Facebook events is where it's at. You can get all sorts of details on what beaches we're going to during the low tides, including our community science beach monitoring program. So we are packing June full of events there. So come join us to do some science on the beach. Not necessarily no scuba certification required, really no scientific experience required. You can come learn and have fun with us, because that, of course, is the Harbor WildWatch motto. We also have a really fun opportunity coming up at Salt Creek. While I'm here in the South Sound doing beach monitoring, Lindsay and Rachel will be doing a special Steward Club beach walk out at I don't know, it's like one of the most incredible rocky shore habitats, where there's just life on every inch of every rock, and your brain just explodes with intertidal brilliance. You can get your finger hugged by sea urchins. You can get your palm sucked by a clingfish. You can even, we find the pepper dulse, which is this funky seaweed that when you nibble on it, it's like the spiciest, weirdest flavor in your face. So have a full sensory experience and consider joining Lindsay and Rachel for that. I'm blanking on the date, but it's on our channels. So with that, come learn and have fun with Harbor WildWatch. And of course, for any divers out there, we have a rockfish survey training and club dive with the fabulous Tacoma Scuba crew for Friday, 6 p.m. on June 24th. So with that, we'll sign off here saying learn, have fun. Thank you so much, Adam.
Sure thing. Good night.
So thanks everybody for tuning in.